Joining me today is Lieutenant Governor of Wisconsin, Mandela Barnes. So Mandela, welcome to Coffee with Climate Leaders, working from home today.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
Thank you. It's great to see you. The last time I saw you was at the Climate Leadership Conference in Detroit, and you were kind enough to speak on my panel on subnational climate action. So I really wanted to catch up with you and hear about how Wisconsin is navigating the intersection between health, environmental, and economic priorities during this pandemic.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up because COVID-19, for all the devastation that it's caused across the country and the individual states, I think that it's highlighted the critical need for us to take more action when it comes to health, economics, and environment, because the problems that we're experiencing, many of them have been around before. Unfortunately, COVID-19 is the culprit at this moment, but health inequity has long existed, income inequality has long existed, and environmental concerns as well. And I think that it gives us an opportunity to be able to discuss these issues in a more immediate and more impactful way as people try to grapple with why COVID-19 is having the impact that it's having, especially in the communities that it's having the most impact. Here in Wisconsin, I want to say we're at about we have 374 people who've lost their lives to COVID-19, and we're about 9,000 positive infections that we're dealing with. And I will say in the last couple of weeks, the Latino community, for instance, has gone from about 19% of the infections here in Wisconsin, although they make up about 6.5% of the population, went from 19% of positive test cases to about 29% now. So a 10% jump, totally disproportionate impact. The Black community in Wisconsin, for a moment, at the onset, we made up over a quarter of the positive test cases. We're down to about 21% now. But we also make up about 6.5% of the population. So there's a disproportionate impact of COVID-19. But the issues that you just mentioned when it comes to health, economics, and environment, those same startling statistics, all that is parallel to what we're dealing with now, the issues before COVID-19. So it's important for us to think about what the other side of COVID-19 looks like, especially for the already impacted communities.
Right. There are so many parallels between the issues that are presented with COVID and that of climate change. And certainly the impact on disadvantaged communities is a stark reminder of what we're dealing with both cases. And you are also the head of a state level task force that is to come up with a plan for taking climate action in Wisconsin, and you're slated to come out with a report in August of this year. How's that going? Is that still on track, or have the recent priorities in terms of dealing with COVID sidetracked that work?
Yeah, so I do have the pleasure of chairing the governor's task force on climate change. I talk about this task force with a lot of pride because we brought together so many people. And I think the most encouraging part about it is that we brought together people many times who have differing views or competing views, but these are people who haven't always been in the room together, haven't always been able to sit down at tables and have conversations to talk about, why what they're doing or what does that mean for community XYZ and how does it impact the community respond to this. So it's a little bit different in the fact that folks get to actually have conversations instead of talking across one another, be it through press release or social media. This is a chance for a cross-section of people from our state, be it regional, be it discipline, be it background. And we are still having meetings. We actually have a subcommittee meeting a little bit later today in about an hour and a half or two, talking about healthy communities. And we were supposed to have a set of recommendations for the governor by August, but I am likely to ask that we get an opportunity to push those recommendations back, just given how things have changed. We are still meeting virtually, but lives are much different now. And this will always be a priority for me. It will always be a priority for people on the task force. But we have to understand that there are certain adjustments that people have to make.
Will there be a public comment period when the recommendations come out?
We've had 2 in-person task force meetings, and we always have time for public input. And we do them in different parts of this. Well, we've only been in 2 parts of the state so far. We've only had 2 meetings, but those 2 meetings, the public was encouraged to show up. And, we get demonstrators who come out, and people who are on our side on the issue, but want us to push even harder. And, their voices should be heard. We haven't gotten we haven't gotten much opposition in the in-person meetings. For the most part, the overwhelming majority of people understand that this is a very real issue. And we're experiencing some weather here in Wisconsin right now. It's 36 degrees this morning. I was on another phone call. I'm in Madison at the moment. I was on another phone call earlier. Somebody said they saw snow flurries outside. It is almost mid-May. So it's a thing to understand.
Definitely. Definitely, that's a big awareness, a big factor for people to understand that the climate is changing, because it's so right there in their face and how they're experiencing their everyday life. So I also wanted to ask you, Mandela, about regional collaboration on those, the health, environmental, and economic priorities. Are you working with your colleagues in other states to formulate some of these climate action policies that you're looking at?
So at this moment, a lot of the regional collaboration has been mostly a COVID-19 response, but the regional lieutenant governors, the ones we keep most in touch with are the ones that border my state. So the Minnesota lieutenant governor, Michigan lieutenant governor, Illinois, and we speak pretty regularly. Kentucky's now been added to that mix, but like I said, the conversations have been pretty much COVID related at the moment. But we do have important issues that we need to discuss, especially Wisconsin and Michigan. When you look at different pipelines or the back 40 mine, and in Minnesota, just in general, because I do feel that Minnesota is doing more. They have been doing more, but they have a legislature that understands the urgency, so they've been able to do more for longer. They also had a governor who understood prior to the one they have now. So a lot of it is, following their lead and seeing the things that they did right and learning from their mistakes as well. But we haven't yet had a moment to have that deep dive into a much more robust environmental conversation, but I am very certain that will be happening.
That's great. And there's a lot of agriculture and land use issues in the Midwest. Dairy, is that community working and kind of behind these somewhat progressive climate actions and supporting those and looking to change their practices?
So we do have representatives from our farming community who are a part of the task force. We have people from the Farmers Union. We have a couple other people involved in research who've been a part of this task force as well, because they want to be a part of the solution. We got a lot of farmers who they don't want to do the wrong thing by the environment. It is as important to them, especially as climate change is totally disrupting their industry, and they want to work to get rid of that bad name. They want to work in good faith with us all. It's not that, and for a lot of them, it's not that they didn't want to in the first place. The support wasn't always there. And we want to make this, we want to make our efforts one where we're not pointing fingers. We want to open the door for people to become engaged. And I think that we're getting better results because of that.
And I'm wondering about, or just wanted to talk with you about the last COP that we attended together, COP25. And you wowed a lot of the crowds that you spoke in front of with your message of optimism and hope. And just can you tell climate leaders now in terms of what we should be saying to the community out there?
I think it's important for us to remain optimistic, but to also become even more optimistic. COVID-19 is something that's here right now. in the moment, but that doesn't take away from the issues and the problems that already existed. And we have a chance like no other to tie this all together, to talk about how injustice, be it environmental or health related or economic related, is all inextricably linked. And climate, once this is all over, is still going to be there and it's still going to be an issue. And you can even look at some of the, whether it's reduced carbon emission, whether it's, improved air or water quality in areas across country and across the world as a result of less stress on the planet. I think that we should look to that again on the other side of that, and encourage people to make more responsible decisions. And when I say people, I mean the largest players, the largest contributors to whether it's pollution or be it just environmental injustice in general.
Exactly. Very good words to end on. And I know you've got another meeting to run off to, so I don't want to keep you, but I do want to thank you for joining me here today and wish you all the best with your endeavors in Wisconsin, and look forward to seeing you again sometime, hopefully in the near future.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.